turned a postage stamp into a $98 million research engine. When people said it couldn't be done, whether it be the Congress, United States Postal Services, he did it anyways. His name is Dr. Ernie Bodai. But why you specifically? You were a surgeon. You were the head of surgeon.
Became a lobbyist. But a lobbyist...
A lobbyist without experience, just a person following a passion to do something better and provide better for the women and the community that he's serving in.
That is correct.
That came out of this research funding and the STAMP initiative that you had mentioned to me was Oncotype DX. Did I say that right?
Yes, that's correct.
So it's a genetic test that looks at breast cancer tumors and tells doctors whether a patient actually needs chemotherapy or can safely skip it. He turned a postage stamp into a $98 million research engine. When people said it couldn't be done, whether it be the Congress, United States Postal Services, he did it anyways. His name is Dr. Ernie Bodai, and today he's here to talk about his journey through the stamp process that has funded this amazing research to learn not only how he challenged but changed a broken system and what is discovered about true health and why he is still at the clinic at the age of 74 versus being retired on a beach somewhere. Dr. Ernie Bodai, thank you so much for joining me here today. And you have just come from the clinic itself here to record this episode with me.
I did. It was a pleasure to be here. I really appreciate the invitation.
Yeah. So let's dive in. Dr. Bodai, your journey is so inspiring, but there's a moment in every revolutionary's life where they realize the system, yes, it's working, but it's not serving the people that it's supposed to serve. So what was that moment for you?
Well, I'll tell you, the genesis of the stamp is very interesting. I was preparing a speech for the American Cancer Society back in 1995 on the history of breast cancer. And to look at the real true history, you can't find it in medical books. You have to go into art history books. And as I was preparing a lecture, out of the blue, midnight, Christmas Eve, I've got this idea to say, let's make a postage stamp for breast cancer and for awareness. And about a moment later, I said, you know what, we should price it a little bit higher than the normal stamp, get the extra money that we raise and put it into research. Because the fact of the matter is, back in the 90s, mid-90s, I was getting very frustrated with the slow pace of advances in breast cancer treatment. And after having done thousands and thousands of breast cancer surgeries, I wanted to find a way where we can enhance the research dollars that went into breast cancer research. So I figured this would be an easy way to do that, and it would be totally voluntary. And so I wrote the U.S. Postal Service a letter explaining my idea. And of course, I got a very nasty reply saying, no way, we're not going to do this. We don't raise money. We're not a nonprofit organization. If we do it for breast cancer, we have to do it for heart disease, kidney cancer, et cetera. And so I decided that there's got to be a way to get around this. And the only way to do it was to get the Postal Service the authority through a congressional act or law that would allow them to produce what's called a semi-postal, which is a stamp that is a little bit priced higher than a normal stamp. And so what I did, my next step was I wrote all the female representatives in in Congress about the idea. And I got not one reply. There were like 34 women at that time in the U.S. Congress. And that really infuriated me. So next step, I bought myself an airline ticket and I flew to Washington, D.C. And I wanted to know why nobody responded to my letter. And the fact of the matter is that I didn't have any appointments with anybody. I just kind of cold called.
You were winging it.
What's that? I was winging. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And the fact of the matter is very interesting that when I showed up in person, I was very well received because Face it, the government gets hundreds and thousands of letters every year
Yes.
with crazy ideas. But when I showed up in person and showed that I really didn't want anything for myself, I didn't want congressional lines to be redrawn, big issue these days.
Yes.
I didn't
yes.
want any money. I just wanted a stamp that would raise money for the women and their families of America.
But, okay, so let's go back because I want to understand just a little bit more. You just described that when the Postal Services said no to your idea, you went to Congress. But why you specifically? You were a surgeon. You were the head of surgeon. I read his book, How I Flunked My Mammogram. So you were the chief of surgery at Kaiser Permanente.
Right.
And so, yes, you see everything that is slow moving around you, but you're a busy man. And being the chief of surgery has its own responsibilities. So what did it ignite in you?
Well, I'll tell you what happened is I got a little bit ahead of myself. And when I went and gave that speech for the American Cancer Society, I announced, maybe reluctantly, that I was going to start on this mission to get a stamp and raise money for breast cancer research. And at that point, the women in the audience, many of them thought it was a fantastic idea, and they really got behind me. And so when I started on the mission, there were, by the way, I went there like 12, 13 times to Washington, D.C., and there were many nights and days where nobody would talk to me and doors would get slammed in my face. But I could not fail because I had all these ladies and their families, and many of whom were my patients, who were really, really very supportive. And I couldn't tolerate not accomplishing the mission. I couldn't come home without success.
Is that this part of you that you just described, that you didn't want to fail the other people who believed in you, is that something that is sort of part of your personality and it ingrained in you?
Well, I presume it is because I did it, but...
But aside from this event.
I'm sorry?
Aside from this event.
Aside, well, I try to achieve a lot. I work hard. Many people think I'm an overachiever, but that's really not true. I just use the gifts that I've been given to accomplish things that are doable. Some things are a little bit harder than others, but it's a drive that's in me. I've dedicated my life to breast cancer. I've been doing in the business for like 45 years now.
Wow.
And that's why I'm still working, by the way.
Yes, I know. That's why I mentioned it at the top of the conversation.
Or playing golf. I don't play golf anyway, but it's just a drive that I have and a commitment that I made to myself and to thousands of women that I've dealt with over the years.
But during this journey, when you started, and because of this commitment, did you team up with anyone, or did you decide to make it a solo mission?
Well, I would say it was not a solo mission. I had a lot of support from the community. A lot of people helped raise money to fund all these journals. The most of it I funded myself, but it was really. It wasn't a one-man effort. I was the spokesperson for it, but I had a lot of help from around the country.
That's amazing.
Not just from Sacramento.
But you went straight to Congress. I want to ask you, you didn't think of going to donors or to Kaiser or other organizations working towards breast cancer and kind of moving the needle a little bit faster?
Well, what I did was I did actually recruit a lot of large organizations, the American Cancer Society, Komen Foundation, etc., to support my efforts. Now I was making the trip solo, but I had a lot of support from the American College of Radiology,
that's great.
mammographers, all the healthcare personnel that are involved in breast cancer, plastic surgeons, for instance, American Medical Association. I asked them all to please write Congress in support of the idea. So I had a lot of help from large organizations, not financially, but in terms of supporting the idea.
Why not financially?
Well, I'll tell you, it's a very simple answer. I do not like asking people for anything.
But you're fighting for a great cause.
Yeah, but I don't feel, I'm not the type of person that would ever ask anybody for anything, especially money. I don't, people ask for money all the time, and I am just not that type. I can't do it. It's not in my nature.
There's not many people out there like that. I mean, there are some, but like obviously sometimes when, like we're talking about the work that you have done for breast cancer research and the funding that the stamp has provided, when the cause is bigger than you, sometimes you're saying, oh gosh, I'd hate to do it, but I guess in this instance I have to.
Well, I in hindsight, I probably should have. It would have been helpful, but I didn't do it. I didn't feel right about it because I just don't like soliciting.
Yes. Yeah. And I say yes because I carry the same sentiments, and it's just, I don't know how to articulate it, but I fully comprehend and understand what you're saying. And it's just, it becomes, I feel like sometimes it can deviate from the mission at hand when you get a little bit sidetracked.
You're exactly right. And that's the way I feel. So
any point during this that people think, gosh, it's not moving as fast as we'd like? Did they think that perhaps you were wasting your time with this huge effort?
A lot of people thought I was wasting my time, but I just put that aside. I don't like negativity, so if somebody tells me I'm wasting my time doing something, I don't need to hear that.
Yeah.
I know what I want to do. I know what I want to accomplish. And I kind of, dismiss negative attitudes about what we're trying to accomplish.
Because Dr. Bodai, when you present something to somebody, the idea sounds novel, and people oftentimes, they're very supportive, but it's kind of like the honeymoon period in a relationship. When that wanes off, and because people are not seeing results fast enough, then it loses traction at times.
That is true. And the fact of the matter is that as the progress went toward getting the bill, actually I was building traction because I was starting to get more and more support from congressional representatives in Congress, some senators in Congress were starting to get on board. And so really momentum was building. And it seems like it was moving at a slow pace, but, working with the government is not exactly, talking about a turtle,
Right. That is very aptly put. So, okay, let's talk about it. Because we're working with the government. What year was that when you actually started your lobbying?
So I started traveling back to Washington, D.C. in 1996 and took about probably half a dozen trips, if I recall, to get a piece of legislation introduced into Congress that would allow the Postal Service to issue the fundraising stamp. Now there was a bunch of hurdles, obviously back and forth, and
yes.
Bills were introduced and then they were killed and then they were reintroduced and on it went until finally we got to a point where it really was kind of a checkmate type situation, because who in Congress would not be supportive of an idea that is so simple yet can produce such great results?
What were some of those big hurdles that you can remember?
Well, the biggest one was getting a bill introduced. Anybody can get a bill introduced. The real hurdle is getting it passed. So you have to get congressional approval. So I could go back to Congress tomorrow, or you could go there if you like and get a bill introduced, but getting it through Congress is a whole different ballgame.
Wow. And you said you traveled there about half a dozen times while you were still practicing at Kaiser. So were you doing this on your days off?
Well, no, I was doing it on my vacation days.
Oh my goodness.
So I would, build up vacation and then I'd take off. And then the biggest problem that I had in terms of time is that when I would leave for 4 or 5 days, I would come back and my clinic would be very backed up.
Yeah.
But, I told the ladies, I said, I'll see you later. I said, I'd be happy to do your surgery, but I'm going to be gone for 3 or 4 days on this mission that I'm on. And so I'm going to have to postpone your surgery a week. And they were I cannot remember one patient that had an issue with that.
That's amazing. Dr. Bodai, that's amazing.
You're too kind.
No, but I mean, it really takes a strong person of principle to follow through something that is bigger than them. It seems like, and please correct me if I'm wrong, to be so bold to say it kind of became your purpose, your life's purpose.
You're absolutely right. It did. It really consumed me. And I think, I think the people that paid the biggest price really were members of my family, because I was already gone enough as a surgeon and operating day and night. And then to be gone on, other trips that didn't involve my family can be a little bit painful for my kids, I think.
Yeah, yep. And you were doing this, taking on this initiative when you were in your 40s? Is that right? Or if I did my math correctly, I was...
Yeah, I was in the late 40s.
Wow. That's that requires a different sort of energetic muscle, and it can be hard on the body as well.
Well, I can tell you, I lost a lot of sleep. But,
yes.
It was, as I say, I got so embroiled in the whole idea that I just kept going and going and going.
Who was the first Congress member that you remember who actually listened and you thought, oh gosh, now I've got it in front of the right person?
Well, there are several, but I think F.A.C.S was our congressional representative in this area back then, and he was the one first introduced the bill. Mm-hmm. But then it got a little bit crazy because there were a lot of politics behind it, and he had to hand the bill off to Susan Molinari, who was a representative from New York, because there was a lot of politics behind the whole thing. So Vic Fazio was gracious enough to hand off the bill to Susan Molinari. And then I got basically all the females in Congress behind the bill. And that was the trick, is to get the women on board.
Yes.
Because...
I mean, you are trying to find funding for breast cancer.
Right.
Yep.
And again, I reiterate, I didn't want anything for myself. And so there are two things that made a big difference. One is I appeared in person. Mm-hmm. And two, I didn't want anything for myself. Now, basically, I became a lobbyist. But a lobbyist without experience, just a person following a passion to do something better and provide better for the women and the community that he's serving in. That is correct. I'll tell you something interesting is that many of the representatives and senators I met with over the years said to me that I was the most effective lobbyist they have ever dealt with, because I didn't want anything, Most lobbyists go there and they want money or, whatever.
It's, what is the exchange? What are we bartering?
Yeah, exactly.
It's amazing that you were able to, you went to Congress to force the United States Postal Service's hand into, and I'm being a little bit unpolished in describing it this way. And for a person who is, you were seemingly unprepared and you just kind of figured it out on the fly.
That's correct.
What an amazing achievement.
Well, thank you. That's very kind.
But while you were doing this initiative in the mid-90s, there was also something else that was happening in the breast cancer world, that was the pink ribbon. Which during October, there's a lot of breast cancer awareness month, as it's known. And, there's people wearing the pink ribbon to amplify the awareness of breast cancer. So this is just a little bit context for the listeners that I have here, that the pink ribbon was created in 1991 through 1993 with Susan G. Komen in 1991, and then formalized by S.A. Lauder in 1993. It actually originated from Charlotte Haley's grassroots Peach Ribbon campaign in 1992, where she criticized that only 5% of the National Cancer Institute's budget went to prevention. But when Self Magazine and S.A. Lauder wanted to use her ribbon, she refused. So they created their own pink version focused on awareness. So by the time your stamp launched in 1998, the ribbon was already everywhere. NFL uniforms, sneakers, credit cards, cosmetics, and now in 2025, we see it everywhere. Estee Lauder has distributed over 70 million pink ribbons, but here is what has happened since then, and this is in my research preparing for our conversation. The Breast Cancer Action has coined the term pink washing in 2002 to describe companies using the pink ribbon to market products without meaningful donations to research. Many companies won't disclose how much they donate, set caps on donations regardless of sales, or worse, sell products containing chemicals linked to breast cancer while supporting pink ribbons. And this is why, Dr. Bodai, your work is such an inspiration, because you said you didn't want anything for yourself. 100% of the surcharge goes directly to research. There's no marketing budget, no cap, no ambiguity. And so when you see this pink ribbon campaign, the same time you're working so feverishly on now your stamp, what difference did that make, and what are your thoughts about the pink ribbon?
Well, I think you've encapsulated it very well. Actually, it has become a marketing tool.
Yep, I agree. This is my very strong personal opinion.
It's my strong personal opinion too, and exactly as you say, many companies use the pink ribbon to increase their profits, and whatever they donate, if they donate anything at all,
yep,
to the research is really unknown. They're trying to sell, cookware and, you name it, the pink ribbons everywhere. And I think it's kind of lost its effectiveness over the years, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. It's kind of been overused. I mean, as you say, it's everywhere, and, it doesn't really spark an emotional response anymore, I don't think.
No, and it's become sort of like what I feel like, as an observer, it's kind of like a feel-good campaign, right? So you put on your pink ribbon, people assume you did something good. Great if you did, but it's just a month of feel-good social awareness campaign, but it's a marketing thing. And what you did, like I just mentioned moments ago, there was no marketing budget, there's no CEO salary, there's no caps, pure research funding that is actually making a difference in a matter and with a disease that so many people from the world over are suffering with in this present day.
No, you're absolutely right. And, I think another point that is very interesting is that, October is, quote, Breast Cancer Awareness Month, which is another silly idea, to be honest with you, because every month should be Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Why is it just October? It's ridiculous. Because in October, everybody gets together, and it's a big marketing ploy again. People are making money. There's all these runs and walks and people raising money, and nobody knows where that money goes.
Correct. I did some research about that as well, but I didn't want it to deviate from our conversation. So I didn't bring in that data here because I think I have plenty for our conversation. But let's talk about the impact of the stamp. Your stamp launched in 1998, and I want to show this here that you brought for the viewers. This is the breast cancer stamp here that Dr. Bodai created. Dr. Bodai, who was the artist?
The artist was a lady named Whitney Sherman. She lives in Baltimore, and she did an incredible job. If you may allow me to just tell what this is about. This is a picture of Diana Artemis, and she is the Roman mythological protector of women. And what she's doing is she's reaching for her bow and her quiver to fend off an enemy of women, which in this case is breast cancer. And you'll see that the right breast has been removed and replaced with our logo, which is fun to fight to find a cure. Now, it's very interesting that the position that she's assuming is also the position for mammography. So there's a hidden message in the stamp for ladies to get their annual screening. It is also the position for breast self-examination. So it reminds women to do their breast exams. And then the rainbow of colors represents the fact that it's a disease that affects women of all colors. And the rainbow traditionally is also the symbol for hope, which in this case is hope for a cure. I noticed that there's no price on the stamp itself, which is something that I suggested to the Postal Service that when they finally issued the stamp, I said, don't put a price on it, because if you raise the price in 2 years, you have to reprint it all. So this actually became the very first semi-postal or forever stamp, as they call them now.
Yes.
Because it has no price on it.
Yep.
So every year when they raise the price, they don't have to reprint the stamp itself. So that was a very important.
That was very well thought out, because otherwise this would have been eliminated a while back due to production costs and all of that, because all of those are also a factor.
Absolutely.
So the impact of the stamp that Dr. Bodai just described is, as I mentioned, it launched in 1998. As of July 2025, that's the most recent data that I was able to collect, over 1.1 billion stamps have been sold. Dr. Bodai, I have the number as over 98 million raised for breast cancer research. Is that correct?
It's a little bit higher than that. The latest figures that I had, which are not internet driven, are actually from the Postal Service. It's about close to $130 million that have been raised.
Wow.
It's just crazy to think about it. I get all excited because you think a little piece of paper like that can raise that kind of money. Unbelievable.
Unbelievable is right. I can't find a different synonym for it, so we'll just go with that. It's currently priced at 85 cents, I believe, and that's because obviously with the cost of things going up over the years from when it was first introduced. And the surcharge, that is the amount charged on top of the stamp, it goes directly to research. And it has been reauthorized to sell this breast cancer stamp through 2027. By law, 70% of the contributions go to the National Institute of Health, and 30% of it goes to the Department of Defense's Medical Research Program. And so, Dr. Bodai, when I met with you and you told me that 30% went to Department of Defense, DOD, I was a little taken aback, because oftentimes when you think of DOD, you think of ammunition, artillery, and the medical research isn't the first thing that comes to mind. But are they doing great stuff with this 30% of the money that's being?
Yes, then, I'll tell you, in my travels and speeches around the country and around the world, when I bring up the DOD, everybody has the same reaction.
Yes.
The DOD, what are they doing with this? Well, the DOD has a very, very robust research program. They do not just breast cancer, but prostate cancer, many other cancers. You think about the DOD, it's a very large organization and it's worldwide. But the biggest thing about it is the DOD is very interested, as you mentioned, in military applications, one of which is imaging studies. So here's the analogy. If you can take a satellite and put it 60, 80 miles up in the atmosphere and take a picture of a license plate on a car, then that imaging technology is incredible. So take the imaging that we have for mammography today, which has improved significantly, but the imaging technology that DOD developed has actually helped in imaging of the breast. So that's just one of the things that they've done. So they're a very innovative research program, and nobody knows about it. They get very little attention, but they really do a tremendous job. They put out annual reports. I think I shared some with you last time about some of the things they do, and they're very, very sophisticated, and they're worldwide. So it's a true program, but as you say, everybody's a little bit shocked when they first get DOD. What are you talking about?
But it's shock, but it's also a pleasant surprise that it's also it's not my wheelhouse, so I don't come across this information until I talk to people like yourself or interacted with DOD and really kind of learn more about the work that they're doing. But one of the breakthroughs that came out of this research funding and the stamp initiative that you had mentioned to me was Oncotype DX. Did I say that right?
Yes, that's correct.
So it's a genetic test that looks at breast cancer tumors and tells doctors whether a patient actually needs chemotherapy or can safely skip it. Please tell us more about this.
This is absolutely fantastic. I tell you, I get shivers up my spine when I talk about it because it's such an incredible advancement. So typically, before the stamp came out and funded the development of the Oncotype DX test, which is a test that's very sophisticated, it looks at 21 genes in a woman's tumor and gives us a genetic profile totally unique to that patient. Not another woman has that profile. And it comes up with what's called a recurrence score. And if it's under a certain number, then we can tell that the benefit of chemotherapy in that setting is less than 1%. Now, I must tell you how important this is for a number of reasons. Number one, chemotherapy is extremely toxic, not just the dreaded hair loss, nausea, vomiting, infections, cardiovascular complications, which, by the way, is the number one killer of women in the United States, not breast cancer, it's heart disease. And many of the chemotherapy drugs that we use for breast cancer are very cardiotoxic. So we're able to spare, with this test, about 1/3 of the women who would have gotten chemotherapy from getting it. You're talking about hundreds of thousands of women who have been spared chemotherapy, the dreaded hair loss, all the other horrible side effects, because this test has become available. And the test would not have been developed without the money from the breast cancer stamp.
Yeah, because I was reading your book and you said, yes, you understand the dangers of chemotherapy, but you just write here in black and white that it's poisonous.
Oh, that is absolutely poison. The other thing about it is, I don't like talking about money, but, with healthcare being so expensive, around the chemotherapy can be $150,000.
Sheesh.
This test is about $2,500. So you think about the impact on the healthcare system and the hundreds of thousands of women that might get chemotherapy every year. We're saving all this money, and it can be put to better use.
But, Dr. Bodai, what is also quite alarming is the rate of the breast cancer that is becoming more prevalent in women all over the world, and just cancer in general. It's just become, it seems like almost common to hear of somebody, or not, sorry, let me rephrase that. When you hear that somebody has cancer, obviously you're in shock, but it's almost become a common hearsay speak.
It is very common. Cancers, particularly colorectal cancer now, is becoming very prevalent in the younger age group. We're seeing colon cancer in patients as young as 35 and 40.
Mm-hmm.
And breast cancer, unfortunately, we're seeing quite a few ladies in their 30s, early 30s, who are getting breast cancer. And the fact of the matter is that the majority of breast cancers in particular are not genetic. Only about 5 to 10% are genetic. The rest of them are all related to lifestyle, which is diet and exercise.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you what, I have a theory about this. The reason that we're seeing younger women getting breast cancer these days is because as children, they're exposed to a lot of hormones,
mm-hmm.
which come in animal products because the Meat and Dairy Association are injecting their animals with hormones, steroids, antibiotics.
Mm-hmm.
And what's happening is kind of not a pleasant thing, but the fact of the matter is that the dairy farmers nowadays are artificially inseminating cows year-round to keep them pregnant, because when they're pregnant, they produce more milk, they make more money. But here's the problem. When a cow is pregnant, their estrogen levels are sky high. So they get the milk. Milk is full of estrogen. If you eat a lot of cheese, cheese is like 8 times concentrated milk. So you're getting all this estrogen. So I believe what's happened is the young girls these days are getting a lot of hormones, a lot of estrogen in the early ages. And so they're now we're having, girls developing breast buds, breast tissue at age 8 and 9. Mm-hmm. They're starting their periods
much earlier,
9 and 10.
Yes.
And that early stimulation, early access to estrogen increases their risk of getting breast cancer later in life.
Wow. Okay, and I will get to the lifestyle questions in a moment, but that is very alarming.
It is alarming. And, the fact of the matter is, we've talked about money quite a bit earlier on, but it is all about money.
Yes.
Everything's about money. The Meat and Dairy Association are extremely powerful lobbyists. And the fact of the matter is that the representatives in Congress, the senators in Congress, do not want to take on the Meat and Dairy Association because then they'll cut off their funding and their donations. It's political.
And I just recently did an episode talking about privacy and security, and I was informed that the lobbying that is being done in the United States is unlike any other country in the world, which was interesting. And I shouldn't be surprised, but I was still surprised to hear that.
Yeah, I'll tell you this, a couple of things along that line. The American population is very philanthropic and they donate a lot of money to very, very good causes. But if they actually knew where that money was going, because a lot of the money that's collected by these large organizations do not wind up going where they should go. Do
you want to open up a can of worms, Dr. Bodai?
Well, you're the one that opened it. No, I'm just going to close it for you.
All right.
But that's the fact is that, we donate a lot of money, and a lot of the charities, are scammers, unfortunately.
Yes, I agree with you.
And the same thing with the government. Why do some of these representatives come into Congress? They make a salary of $150,000 and they leave millionaires. And why do you think that happened?
It's all the lobbyists filling up their pockets in the back end.
Yeah. And I want to start getting any nasty letters from people out there.
I mean, yes, to your point, we don't want to get nasty feedback. However, this is also something that you can't unsee when the writing is on the wall. I think you, sir, have a lot more life experience, and I'm just getting my life experiences. But, we have to confront and say the things out loud that we don't want to say, because until you do, change just cannot happen. I mean, you not only challenge, but change a system. So and I'm pretty sure there are moments when you faltered, and there are probably moments when you were like, shit, should I be doing this? But even if you didn't push past those fears, we wouldn't have funding for Oncotype DX. That is such a powerful tool, not only for breast cancer, but isn't it also looking at prostate and colon cancer as well?
That is correct. Those are tests that are being worked on. And in addition to that, there's also Oncotype technology that is being applied to perhaps decrease the need for radiation therapy in breast cancer.
That is great news.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And that's actually almost ready for prime time. It's in development. It's going to be available very soon.
Wow.
Radiation is, it's got its own issues, obviously, but it's not as toxic as the chemotherapy. But even radiation can cause heart issues. It can cause lung issues. It's terrible on the skin and the breast. I mean, it's like a 3rd-degree burn. And then, it typically resolves, but it's not without its own side effects. So hopefully in the very near future, we'll be able to take a group of women who would have been subjected to radiation and skip the radiation and be just as effective with their treatment.
That's so amazing. I'm so happy to hear that. That it's not the number one killer. Heart attack in women is?
Yes, in fact, heart disease kills more women every year, 7 times as many women every year as does breast cancer. So breast cancer is the most feared disease. Heart disease by far is the number one killer. And heart disease in women gets almost zero attention. There's no ribbon there's a pink or a red dress that they have put out once a year, a little pin with a red dress. But the real important thing is that I want to share with the audience is that heart disease in women presents very differently than in men. So we males typically would get sudden onset of substernal chest pain, raining down the arm, up the neck, and ladies get that too. But often it presents in a much more subtle fashion with the following constellation of symptoms. Sudden onset of severe fatigue. All of a sudden you're totally drained of energy. You can break out in sweats, pain can radiate to the jaw and to the back. And that many women who are having a heart attack also have abdominal pain, nausea, and vomiting. Typical scenario, you're very tired, you're clammy, don't feel good, thrown up, you go to the emergency room. Emergency room doctor will look at you and they're going to think you have the flu or COVID or gallstones. And the fact of the matter is the emergency room doctors throughout the country are still of a mindset that heart disease is a disease of males because all the studies were done in men. And the consequence, they're not as aggressive at looking at women, particularly when they have these rather atypical symptoms. And I'll tell you, the chance of a lady dying of a heart attack are twice as men.
How do we change the conversation, Dr. Bodai?
Well, I tell all my patients, particularly ones that have been through chemo and then the hormonal blockers and radiation, etc., that if you ever have these symptoms, you tell those boys and girls in the emergency room, hey, I've had chemo, I've had radiation, I need to look at my heart. I think the emergency doctors are getting better about it, but the sad thing is that, as you mentioned, heart disease gets almost little to no attention as regards to females.
There's so much work to be done.
There's a lot of work to be done.
Wow. Okay. Let's for a moment go back to the stamp. Because your stamp, other countries copied it as well. 27 countries, they used it as your blueprint. And not only just the breast cancer one, but 9/11 also used your stamp as the blueprint. So these are all in Dr. Bodai's book, I Flung My Mammogram. Towards the end, it's the 27 countries who adopted his stamp. They have been modified, obviously, to represent the country. So Kenya's looks a little bit different. Then you have Grenada, Macedonia, El Salvador. So do you know, Dr. Bodai, you have Jordan, Serbia, Belize, Micronesia. Wow. To your knowledge, how the money was used in these countries, and did you personally travel as well to have the governments implore the same strategy that was implemented here in the United States?
Yes, I have been not to every one of those countries, but the majority of them. And I will tell you a couple of interesting things. Number one, the Postal Service, United States Postal Service, was actually very kind in allowing me to use that image because that's copyrighted. So I could give that image. I had permission from the Postal Service to give that image to any country that wanted to adopt a stamp. And so I visited many of the countries, met with a lot of government officials in different countries, Belize, Hungary, etc. And the fact of the matter is that the monies raised in each of those countries stays in that country. Now, here's an interesting point, is many of the countries are third world countries. They don't have a research infrastructure. So in those countries, the money is directed to outreach, education, and treatment as opposed to research. Now, the one fact that I want to share with you is I don't have any way to monitor where those monies have gone.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, but I do know that the money stays in the country. Some of the countries, might be a little shady, but at least the stamp's out there for awareness,
Yes. And you said you met a lot of influential people. You sure did. You met the Clintons. Hillary Clinton, I believe, is here. Yep, here you are with Hillary Clinton, Lance Armstrong, Andre Agassi, Olivia Newton-John. Dr. Bodai, you got a little famous.
Oh, yeah, right.
If I could turn the page. Who else? Mayor Rudy Giuliani. Senator Dianne Feinstein. She was a prominent figure in California for a very, very long time.
Very influential in getting the stamp through.
And then you met the Princess Catherine and Prince Alexander of Serbia. How was that? Do you have any interesting stories from when you took the stamps to other countries?
Yeah. I have a lot of them. I think, first of all, I think I was very blessed to be able to travel around the world and meet with all these people. But each country had their own story, and, we could be here for a week talking about them all. Some were a little bit more pleasant than others. I will tell you, there were some countries where, I wasn't really welcome, but, we were able to work things through. And I did get the United States State Department to help me get around the world and introduce me to some of the governments in the different countries. So the State Department was quite helpful in getting me into some of these countries.
That's amazing. What is one of your most interesting memories from your travels of introducing the stamp to other countries?
Oh my goodness. That's a tough one.
You shared one interesting story and I thought, wow, what a...
Yeah, are you talking about the armed guard story?
Yes, please share with the audience.
Okay, so I was in a country, I won't name it.
Yes.
I was in one of the countries in Eastern Europe, and I was under the auspices of the State Department here, and they wanted to take me to a certain TV station. And when you're working with the State Department, you're really surrounded with a lot of guards, and they don't really let you run around by yourself because you're there representing them. So one morning I was picked up by this armed guards in this country who didn't speak any English, and they were armed, heavily armed, and they kind of put me in the back of this armored vehicle and drove me probably an hour or two up some mountainside and up to this TV station. And they wouldn't let me get out until they got out and ran around and made sure everything was secure. So they said they finally pulled me out. They didn't speak any English, by the way. And so they were kind of motioning me. So I went in, did this TV show about an hour long on breast cancer. And I had a translator, obviously, with me. And that was kind of interesting because at the end of the speech, all the females in the TV studio wanted me to do examinations on them. so I did,
In hearing you describe this, Dr. Bodai, it seemed like you were having a second separate life with all these different, unique, and enriched experiences. Different than the life you had been leading before you took on this initiative.
It definitely became, you said it right, it was kind of a second life, So I had, a personal life. I had a life as a very busy surgeon, and then I got into this fundraising mechanism for women.
As you got into this, and the stamp gets approved, and you're traveling, being the state's representative, did it at any moment dawn on you that, oh, maybe I should explore this and not go back to being the chief of surgery and doing the work that you had been, because you already put in a good number of time. Maybe this was a different career that you could explore.
Well, I'll tell you that I really, really found a lot of self-satisfaction in helping women with breast cancer. And the fact that I had an enormous amount of surgical experience, and I wanted to take care of patients, that's my number one thing. And you bring up a really interesting point, and that is that, I could see so many X number of patients a week, but when you get the stamp out there, you're really reaching out to hundreds of thousands of women. Yes. So instead of just sitting in an office and treating one woman at a time, I was actually, well, not I, but with the mechanism, was able to actually impact thousands and thousands of women, not just in the United States, but around the world. So I really, I spent a lot of time training to be a surgeon, and I didn't want to give that up.
and I asked that because obviously, a lot of people would say, I've done it and I've done it well. It's okay to hang up my cap a little bit early.
Not me. I can't do that.
That's amazing. But Dr. Bodai, and I should have asked you this much earlier, why breast cancer in particular? Why did you get into that? This became your focus, because and your history is quite amazing, because your family was born in Budapest and they escaped during the Hungarian Revolution in 1957. So you have worked really hard even before this stamp initiative. But why breast cancer the focus?
So what happened was when I was working in the hospital, I became chief of surgery, as you mentioned. And mid 80s, thereabouts.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the major jobs as chief of the surgical department was second opinions. And the major second opinion that was generated was always about breast cancer. So I would have to see all the ladies who wanted a second opinion about breast cancer. And then when I saw them, they would wind up staying with me and wanted me to do their surgery. It's a big compliment. So I got focused in on that, and then I did that for many, many years. And then, as I mentioned, I came up with this crazy idea about the stamp, and off I went.
Off you went. But you, doctor, are also a survivor of prostate cancer as well?
That's correct. I was diagnosed with prostate cancer when I was 49.
Wow.
Which is very young. And actually...
that must have jolted you.
Excuse me?
Did the diagnosis jolt you when you
for about 5 minutes? I said, well, everybody, I've been telling everybody my entire career you have cancer, and now I've been told I have cancer. So it really wasn't, it was a little bit shocking because I was pretty young.
Mm-hmm.
Usually we think about prostate cancer as a cancer that you get when you're in your 70s and beyond.
Yes, my maternal grandfather had it, but the same age that you said.
Really?
In the late 70s, 80s, yeah.
Yeah. So, no, I wasn't that shocked. And actually, I discovered it myself because what I was doing is every year I just do my routine blood work, and I was 49. And I said, oh, you know what? I'll throw a PSA in, prostate-specific antigen, just for kicks. And it came back. It was a kick. It came back.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't say.
Yeah. It came back sky high. So at that point, I had to get treated for it. But that was like 25 years ago. I'm still running around.
Yes. Yes, you are. But despite all of the work that you've done, Dr. Bodai, just as a doctor, as a lobbyist, that wasn't enough, because now you've started focusing and shifted your attention into survivorship. So that is what happens after someone beats cancer. When did survivorship come into your focus?
So what happened was the etiology of that was that about 10 years, actually 11 or 12 years ago, I decided that I had to give up surgery because I developed some contractures in my hands. Mm-hmm. My vision, I had problems with my left eye vision. And fact of the matter is that when I was doing surgery, I always operated alone, because when I had assistants, they would slow me down. So I had to make a very, very painful decision when I was about 62 to give up surgery, because I felt like if I hurt somebody, knowing that operating with these handicaps with my hands and my eyes, that's not me. I couldn't do that. Mm-hmm. So I had to make a painful decision, because surgery was my life. I mean, I was in the OR 3-4 times a week. All day. Saturdays, I'd be operating all the time. And I gave up surgery because I didn't want to hurt anybody. But on the other hand, I didn't want to retire. So I could have retired at that age, but I decided not to. And one of my colleagues and I came up with this idea of survivorship, because what I noted over the 35 years or so that I was doing surgery is that there was a tremendous gap from the time a woman finishes her acute treatment, that is radiation or chemo, mm-hmm. and their return to a normal life. And they have to transition back, stop being a patient, get back to your life. And there was no avenue for that. So we did a lot of research on what it takes to transition a patient back into their normal life and get them out of this mode of they're a patient constantly getting infusions and radiation, etc. And survivorship is very interesting because it's really become into vogue right about when I started our program, because, breast cancer is no longer considered an acute disease. It's a chronic condition.
What is the difference between the two, doctor?
It means that you can live with it for a very, very long time. Mm. So a heart attack is an acute problem. You might not survive it. Cancer, not just breast, but many other cancers.
Because they can have the ability to resurface.
Right.
Okay.
So people are living many, many years after their diagnosis and treatment. And we want them to live a good, healthy life. And what got them there in the first place, in many cases, was a very unhealthy lifestyle. And so lifestyle medicine is now a very, very big field. Mm-hmm. And that's basically what I'm concentrating on. And it's really, really important, particularly in breast cancer, because the treatment modalities, the chemotherapy, the radiation, the hormonal blockers. By the way, the hormonal blockers sometimes you have to take them for 5 or 10 years. It's pills that have a lot of side effects, quality of life, hot flashes, insomnia, weight gain, you name it. And, you want to, because these women are going to have to deal with this for a very long time, you want to try to put them on a trajectory of good health.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you do with lifestyle changes, diet, exercise, eliminating all the highly processed foods, all the ultra processed foods that we're eating, all the poisons that we're putting in our body every time we eat these horrible foods. Many of the additives that are used in processed foods in the United States are actually banned overseas.
Yes.
Not even allowed to be used overseas. And here we're poisoning ourselves.
Yes. Yes, 100%. And I need to do an episode on that because I feel very strongly about that as well. I mean, I think one of the very simple examples is Red 40 that we use in our chips and most of the junk food.
Doritos.
Yeah, that we consume. However, if memory serves me correctly, recently they're trying to not overturn, but rework that, and I'll have to look that up. But Dr. Bodai, when I was speaking with you too, you had mentioned when we're talking about your shift into lifestyle that you don't like the word survivor, you prefer thriver. Why is that distinction so important?
Well, it's kind of interesting. I think that many women themselves don't like the word survivor because they think that they have beaten something that somebody else hasn't. And so
But we throw around the word so casually.
It is thrown around very casually. And, the fact of the matter is that anybody who's diagnosed can be a survivor. You're not in a special group of having beaten a disease. So I don't like that word. Thriver is not when it came up, but I'm not really crazy about that word either.
But it's much better than survivor.
Yeah, I agree.
When you use the word thriver with patients, do you see a difference in how they receive the information and what changes? Because nomenclature can change so much of the dynamics, and sometimes they're small and insignificant, but they carry major changes and shakeups in your demeanor and how you approach things.
That's very true. And, I'll tell you something that always sticks with me is I had a lady several years ago. It was in my clinic, and she made a very interesting statement. She told me that I had given her permission to resume her life.
Wow.
That's a pretty heavy statement.
Yes, it is.
You think about it, and I think about that often. I think about her because she was so right, because so many women think that, I've had cancer, and a lot of women who don't have a positive attitude of getting through their treatment don't do well. Mm. And, they, exactly as they put it, says, I can now resume my life. And she said, I gave her permission to resume her life. They think about that. That's like crazy. Yeah.
It sounds crazy.
That's heavy.
Yes, I agree to you and I. But when a person has gone through so much pain just to come on the other side, not to mention when you compound it with life in all of its other demanding facets that life has of you, you sometimes cower into a shell. So when you don't have the right support and community, which you speak about a lot in this book too, you feel sometimes burdensome. And so when a person like you empowers people with key words like you're not a survivor, you're a thriver, it changes something in people.
Well, I hope so. I think that it's very individualistic, obviously.
Yes,
some women will take it and run with it, and they are very happy to get back to their routine. And, interestingly too, so many of the women, younger women, have, a 4 and a 6-year-old, and I want to raise them. I want to see my granddaughter get married. And they want to resume their life, and no one's sat with them and actually gone through everything and said, look, here's all the things. Here are the things that we need to look for to make sure you stay healthy and you can enjoy the rest of your life. There's a difference between lifespan and health span. So lifespan is number of years that you live, but health span is the number of years that you live healthy. So, personally, my own personal thing is I'd rather have a shorter lifespan, but a longer health span. I don't want to be bedridden. Yes. I don't want to be a burden to anybody. I don't want anybody taking care of me. And so I'd rather live a little bit shorter, but a little bit healthier in that shorter period of time.
That makes complete sense to me, because I echo some of the same sentiments. I would hate to be in a position to have somebody take care of me around the clock. I think it would take me to my grave much earlier.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't want to be a burden to anybody.
Yes. Yes, and I can understand that. Mention plant-based diet. That's not what a lot of I'm not sure if oncologists tell their patients this, or it's not as heavily publicized. What's the science behind plant-based diet?
Yeah, that's a really excellent question. And I'll just start off by saying, in defense of the oncologists, they are extremely overworked and overburdened, and they don't have time to sit down with a patient and talk about lifestyle, which is diet, which is the whole food plant-based diet, elimination of fatty foods, sugar, salt, and all the other things. The whole food plant-based diet is basically an anti-inflammatory diet, and the root of 80% of all disease, including breast cancer itself, is inflammation. And the United States, the West, where our bodies are living in a state of chronic inflammation. And the inflammation, the number one reason for all the inflammatory changes in our body are all the horrible foods that we eat, because they're all processed. They have all these chemicals that when we ingest, our gastrointestinal system, which is responsible for a large portion of our immunity, sees these chemicals and identifies them as a foreign body. It goes, you guys aren't supposed to be here. And what does it do? It reacts to the formation of dozens and dozens of inflammatory proteins, which are responsible for the two killer diseases in the West, heart disease and cancer. When these chemicals wind up in our colon, for instance, waiting for our bodies to eliminate them, cause inflammation in the colon, which is then the beginning of cancer. Now, I'll tell you, if I were to go to the Far East, like Thailand, set up shop as a cancer surgeon or a vascular surgeon, I'd go out of business. The diseases do not exist there because they don't eat the foods that we eat. And yet there's a number of migratory studies that show that when these folks move here, within 10, 20 years, they adopt our lifestyle. They start getting heart disease and cancer at the same rate that we do. I'll tell you, I have a saying, we're a nation of convenience fueled by technology. And what does this mean? It's easier to drive through McDonald's, grab a greasy burger, salty fries, sugary drink.
Correct.
That doesn't make a healthy meal. Now, the technology part is we as a society have become very sedentary. We don't have to earn our food anymore. We're not hunter-gatherers.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, the sedentary lifestyle of the 2020s is the equivalent of smoking of the 1960s, where we knew that smoking caused lung cancer. Now we know that being sedentary is responsible for the epidemics, obesity, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular, cancer. So exercise is very, very important, along with a diet. You can't eat your way out of you can't exercise your way out of a bad diet.
So all of these things, do they connect? They disrupt our gut microbiome, is what I'm understanding. All these unhealthy foods that we're exposed to here, and that is also a link to breast cancer.
The gut microbiome is actually known as a second brain because it influences everything in our body. And the gut and the brain actually communicate with one another. It's called the gut-brain axis. And the easiest explanation of that is that, you get nervous and you get butterflies in your stomach.
Yes. It's
your brain and your gut talking to one another. Now, the interesting thing about the gut is that when you consume processed foods, ultra-processed foods, and meat and dairy, you're also getting not just the hormones, the steroids that we talked about, but many of the farmers are injecting their animals with antibiotics. because the antibiotics make the poultry and beef it increases their mass. They sell more money, or they sell more meat, make more money. But the problem is that the antibiotics, if you're eating meat and dairy every day, you're actually taking antibiotics every day. And that is wiping out your gut.
Let me for a moment pause and say, when there's so much marketing based around if you want muscles or, around protein. Chicken.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Chicken is, you open up social media and chicken breast is the best and so forth. So how does then an individual who is seeing this being advertised at every single juncture make the change to plant-based? Because science backs up chicken and other meats that you can consume for protein.
Well, I'll tell you that Americans are obsessed with protein.
Yes.
And, the fact of the matter is that you can get a lot more protein from beans, vegetables, lentils, legumes than you do from meat. Meat is basically fat and cholesterol, and there's no fiber in it. Now, the fact of the matter is that you can get a lot of protein from plant-based foods, a lot more than you can get from meat, and it's not infected with antibiotics and all sorts of chemicals. But the American public is obsessed with getting your protein from meat.
Yes.
I mean, if you watch TV, every other commercial is McDonald's or Jack in the Box or, some fast food. The fast foods are probably one of the worst things you can eat because they're ultra processed foods. And I'll tell you that very interesting what's happening around the world now is the fast food chains from McDonald's to Wendy's to all the other ones are moving into the foreign countries.
Yes.
And they're westernizing the diet.
I've seen that. I see it in my travels all the time.
And so let me tell you a really great example of China. 20 years ago in China, you had no obesity, you had no diabetes, you had very little cancer. Now, the obesity rate is skyrocketing, diabetes is skyrocketing. And if you go to Beijing, every corner has a McDonald's or John, whatever that chain.
I agree. The McDonald's is there because I was there 2 years ago.
So I've seen it for yourself.
Yes,
they're everywhere. So they're getting westernized. They don't like that word, but that's what's happening.
Same thing in South Korea. There's a lot of explosion of Western companies and fast food. I was just telling my mom a few days ago that Five Guys in Korea is actually much better than the Five Guys in here in California. And I was gobsmacked. I said, how is it something that originated in the United States is, it's actually, it tastes better. The environment is much better. But yes, I agree. It is popping up a lot more in the countries that didn't have them.
I'll tell you something. We, in the United States, we spend more money per capita on healthcare than any nation in the world. And we're the sickest. And it's all self-induced. It's all the poisons we expose ourselves to every day.
When you were talking about the plant-based diet, because, there's a lot of skeptics. And it's good to be a skeptic, and you have to do your own research and do your own due diligence. However, I do have some facts and figures. There's actual research backing this up now. University of Rochester did a study in 2024 that women with metastatic breast cancer, the most advanced stage, if they're 8 weeks on a whole food plant-based diet, the results were 6.6% weight loss on average, improved insulin levels, better hormones, lower IGF-1. What is that?
That's one of the inflammatory biomarkers. It's insulin growth factor.
Okay. And this is all without mandated exercise. And then there's a longer term data. Kaiser tracked 3,646 breast cancer survivors for almost 10 years. Women who ate a healthful plant-based diet had reduced mortality. And so this isn't just anecdotal. This is published research now.
Yes, and let me tell you, I think some of the background on that, with a whole food plant-based diet, you're getting a very, very significant amount of fiber. And fiber is key to the diet. We get very little fiber here. I'll tell you, if we were to go to Africa and look for colon cancer or breast cancer, you can't find it. It doesn't exist because they eat an incredibly high fiber diet. And fact of the matter is they eat probably 70 grams of fiber a day. The average American eats maybe 12 to 15. But here's the key, is a whole food plant-based diet provides a huge amount of fiber. And within the gut microbiome is a subset of bacteria, which we call the estrobolome. And the estrobolome are those bacteria which have the genetic capability to metabolize and get rid of and lower the estrogen level in your body. So, 75% of breast cancers are estrogen receptor positive, or they're being fed by estrogen. So if you eat a whole food plant-based diet, you're getting a lot of fiber. The favorite food of these bacteria, the estrobolome, is fiber. You feed them a lot of fiber, those bacteria become very happy. They work overtime to get rid of the estrogen in your body and decrease your risk of developing another cancer because you're lowering your estrogen level.
And I'll say something my mom just said to me last night because I was doing some work late. So I thought, I need some energy. It's 10 o'clock. So I popped a piece of chocolate in my mouth, and I don't really eat a lot of refined sugar. The only time I have it is in my coffee. And that's brown sugar. But she said, you're eating this chocolate. Do you know that is what makes the bad bacteria in your body so happy that they're like, oh my gosh, she's finally fed us. Now let us do.
Been starving.
Right. She said, and I thought it was so interesting and funny, doctor, because usually I am the child parenting the parent. And telling her all of this. And so, I mean, it's nice because, I don't gravitate towards these sweet treats anymore like I used to in my younger years. But there are moments when I'm just like, it's sitting right there. I need to have a piece.
Well, I'll tell you something. Chocolate's gotten a little bit of a bad rap. So if you like chocolate, dark chocolate, the darker the better. The more antioxidants in there, anti-inflammatory. So chocolate is a very good source of anti-inflammatory antioxidant chemicals, but the only problem, and you can have it, it's good for you, but you got to watch it in moderation because it's high caloric density.
Correct.
It's got a lot of calories and sugar.
I also now want to talk about some of the myths that you're debunking as we're on the topic of food. We're told that dairy makes your bones stronger.
Okay. I love that one. That's one of my favorite topics.
Okay, so let's start with that. Is that a true statement?
This is, I'll tell you what, this is such false advertising, I can't even tell you. So the Dairy Association tells you, for instance, that milk is good for your bones because it's got calcium and vitamin D in it, okay?
Correct.
What they don't tell you is that milk is, dairy milk I'm talking about, not silk and almond milk and the other ones. So dairy milk is acidic. So if you drink a lot of dairy milk, you're putting a lot of acid into your body. And what does the body do? The body's very smart, and it's going to neutralize that acid. And how does it do that? It leaches the calcium from your bones. So it actually weakens your bones. And the fact of the matter is, latest research indicates that high consumers of milk, dairy milk, have a higher incidence of osteoporotic fractures than if you're not drinking milk. Because you're weakening your bones, because you're leaching the calcium to neutralize the acidity of the milk.
Also been some myths about that soy milk can cause breast cancer, and it's not really providing any nutrients to the body. And my friends and I have gone into a bit of a squabble over this. So what are your thoughts about soy milk?
That's another one of my favorite topics, is the misinformation about soy. Mm-hmm. And here's the situation. So soy is a plant-based estrogen. It's a phytoestrogen. And chemically, it is different than the endogenous estrogen, which your body manufactures, just slightly different. And the fact of the matter is that the soy phytoestrogens compete with your estrogen to occupy the estrogen receptor sites in the breast tissue. So they actually beat your estrogen to the receptor site so that your estrogen can't occupy that receptor site and result in cell proliferation. Now, the fact of the matter is the latest research indicates and this is backed up by many prestigious groups, even the American Cancer Society, that high consumption of soy in the setting of breast cancer actually increases disease-free survival because it cuts off your estrogen from feeding the tumor cells. Now, this is why, for instance, in Japan, they're very hard to find breast cancer. It doesn't exist because they eat an incredible amount of soy. So the oncology community, unfortunately, is still in a freak out mode when they see the E word. So if they see soy and phytoestrogen, oh my God, that's estrogen. You can't take that.
But also, it's kind of exhausting for us people who are not in the medical, everyday people, because you hear conflicting information every passing day.
Absolutely. And this is one of the missions in our clinic, is to get over a lot of these misconceptions, because several of the issues that you brought up, I hear every day. My clinic or every patient, and we try to debunk these things and actually put them on the path.
Okay, another one. We're told that fish oil is good for you, but you're recommending, when we had spoken, flaxseed instead.
Yes, I do recommend flaxseed and avoid fish oil. I'll tell you why. Because fish oil is contaminated with mercury, dioxin, polychlorinated biphenyls, microplastics, as opposed to the flaxseed, which is plant-based. Now, they both contain omega-3, essential fatty acid needed by every cell in the human body to function normally. And omega-3 is a very powerful antioxidant, anti-inflammatory agent. So one of the keys that we try to do, my colleague and I in our clinic, is really, it's breast cancer that brought our patients to us.
Right.
But we're really trying to focus on decreasing inflammation in the body for their overall health, prevention of diabetes, cardiovascular, development of other cancer. So the flaxseed is a very good source of omega-3, and it's not contaminated. Even, farm-raised fish, even they're contaminated because they throw all sorts of antibiotics in the water and whatnot. And so it's really best to avoid that, the flaxseed or the fish oil.
I don't, if I go and look at, once in a while I'll crave some seafood. I don't, I look at the thing, and if it says farm-raised, I don't buy them. But I also take a lot of extra time in what I put into my body. Am I always good about it? No, because nobody's perfect. And so, but I will wake up even in the dead of winter to go to my local farmer's market where I purchase fresh produce and we cook at home. I rarely eat out, because now when I eat out, I am constipated, and I'm just uncomfortable. And the bloatedness that comes with it, at a very minimum, it takes 3 days for my body to settle down, for it to go back to normal, because I'm so used to home cooking and just being very cognizant of what I put into my body. I haven't even been to, my friends were talking about like some fast food place. What was it? Chipotle. I haven't even ventured into a Chipotle in well over a year, because there's no need for me to do that.
Right. Well, I'll tell you what's happening to you is your body is very, very smart, and it's telling you something. It's telling you don't eat those foods. And that's what happens. It's amazing when you make some of these dietary changes, and you don't have to do them overnight.
Correct.
You have to ease into it. If you set goals that you're not going to achieve, you just get frustrated and you give up. Mm-hmm. So you got to kind of ease into it. Even with if you're going to switch to a whole food plant-based diet, you got to do it gradually, over a period of months, if not even longer. But I will tell you this, if you go on a nearly whole food plant-based diet, no one's 100%. And then you say you go out and you splurge and you get a Big Mac, you're going to feel it.
Yeah. Yep.
You feel like garbage for a day or two.
Yep, I do.
There you go. That's what your body's telling you. There's a misconception in going whole food plant-based that you have to buy organic, for instance. That's another nonsense. That's total nonsense. The problem,
they fall into all these little traps.
Yeah, and it's all marketing. So
Correct.
And you pay twice as much for organic than you do for non-organic, and the only difference is that the organic, quote unquote, is not being sprayed with pesticides and herbicides. The problem with that is that the pesticides and herbicides are already in the ground. So just because you're not adding more, you're still getting
Correct.
all that stuff because it's already in the soil, because that's the way you've been
That's what's providing
raising
the
our food
nutrients.
for many, many years. So don't buy organic. What you want to do is just buy regular fruits and vegetables and rinse them 2 or 3 times. That way, what you do is you basically get all the herbicides and pesticides off it, and you've got your homemade organic fruits and vegetables.
I want to ask you this: is I try to eat what is in season. Primarily, I try not to eat out of season foods if I can help it. So, for instance, berries are primarily summertime fruit. Unless I've frozen them from the market, like for instance, I have a peach tree. So my peaches were in excess this year. So what I did was I froze them. So only then will I consume it. So yes, it's out of season, but it's out of my own tree. What are your thoughts on eating things year round that are not in season?
Well, so, frozen foods like fruits and vegetables, berries, frozen berries, whatnot, they're very good.
Okay.
Because what happens is they're freeze dried. So as soon as they're picked, they're frozen.
Yeah.
So they actually maintain their nutritional value. So if you like, everybody loves berries, and they're not in season, you can buy frozen berries, and they're just as good. One of the things that's kind of becoming a little bit irky is canned foods, and whether some of the aluminum from the cans might not leach into the foods.
Well, and the preservatives that they are stored with.
Yeah, and plastics in particular are getting a really bad rap, as they should, because I'll tell you something, microplastics are everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You can't get away from them. In fact, there was a very interesting study that came out very recently, within the last 3 to 6 months, where they looked at 6 or 7 different species of fish off the coast of California, and they analyzed them for microplastics. And they all had huge levels of microplastics in them, which are degenerative components of plastic bottles, which everybody throws in the ocean, right?
Yep.
And the fact of the matter is that there was a concurrent study that came out that analyzed the brains of people who had died of natural causes, and they looked for microplastics in their brains. And believe it or not, they found a teaspoonful of microplastics in patients who had died of natural causes.
That's wild.
It's crazy. And so, now you're talking about, dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson, all these diseases, degenerative diseases of the nervous system. And I think part of the issue is going to be that we're consuming a huge amount of microplastics, which are everywhere. You can't get away from
it.
I'll tell you, I want to give your audience one very important clue. If you're going to drink water out of a plastic bottle, make sure that you don't leave it in the car and let it get to be on a hot day. Let that water get warm, even 80, 90 degrees, because when it reaches a certain temperature, the plastic starts to disintegrate. So if you're drinking water out of a plastic bottle,
mm-hmm.
and it's been sitting in your car and it's gotten warm, throw it out.
Wow. I'm hearing you, and I think the good thing about me personally is I take pride in being aware, but that awareness comes at the cost of what am I setting my future up for? Because it's like, where do I do enough to make sure I've done my part so that I'm not strapped with an unforeseen disease or medical circumstance?
Well, you can only do so much.
I know.
I mean, here I was, at 49, diagnosed with prostate cancer, and I thought I was living a fairly healthy life. Well, I probably wasn't. I had a lot of stress, from my job. I mean,
mm-hmm.
Obviously we're all subject to stress, and stress is a very common denominator in development of cancers, because stress decreases our immune function. And the way this happens scientifically is that, we all have cortisol circulating in our bodies. Cortisol is the hormone that's responsible for fight or flight. If you have to run, cortisol levels go sky high. But in chronic inflammation, cortisol levels are chronically elevated. And when the cortisol level in your body is chronically elevated, what it does, it starts coating the white blood cells in your bloodstream, which are responsible for our immunity, and decreases their function. So if you're under stress 24/7, cortisol levels are high, your immune function gets depressed because the white cells get depressed by the cortisol coating them. So stress is a huge risk factor for development of not just cancer, but all disease.
How do we manage stress in this chaotic times we're in? and life will always be chaotic, right? It's that's relative to what each person is going through at that point in time.
Well, I'll tell you something very interesting is that about 80% of the women that we see in our clinic, when you start talking about stress, within the last 2 years or 3 at the most, they have all had a major stressor event, whether it's loss of a spouse, a divorce, loss of a job, loss of a home. They all can relate to a major stressor. And you know what they tell me? I know that's what caused my breast cancer.
Wow.
It's amazing. I'm telling you, 80% of women have had a major stressor event within the last couple of years.
So it's not just in passing that people say manage your stress. It is imperative that we get on it as to the degree that we can, because otherwise you're going to be subjected to a lot more unforeseen health conditions that may come your way.
I'll tell you, it's easier said than done.
I have. Trust me. I know.
You can meditate and listen to music and,
And we're overstimulated these days, so how do you just tune out to reduce your stress?
That's an excellent question, and I don't really have a good answer. If I did, then I probably would retire.
Okay, so you are talking about retirement. Dr. Bodai, you're 74, and you've said, you hung up your surgical hands reluctantly about a decade ago, but now you're at the clinic. You spent your entire surgical career at Kaiser Permanente, 30 plus years, chief of surgery for 15 years, built a breast cancer program up from the ground up. You have treated over 4,000 women. You've self-funded a 2-year lobbying campaign to Congress. What keeps you going to the degree that you say, I'm not done yet? I don't want to be at a beach yet.
Well, I'll tell you. First of all, I really love my job. I have the greatest job in the world. And one of the things that I'm very concerned about is when I do retire, I don't know who's going to take my spot. Nobody's really interested in doing what I do. At least surgeons aren't. Surgeons want to be in the operating room, They don't want to be sitting there counseling and talking to ladies. So I'm very concerned because there's nobody at this point that I've been able to identify who take over for me. And the second issue that I have is that I have developed so much experience in this field that I just can't see going home and just letting my brain just kind of diffuse from all this information that I want to share. That's why I'm doing this interview with you. I want to share information with you and your fantastic audience,
But what is the cost of this relentlessness? What's the cost of you being so persistent and showing up every day?
Oh, I don't. To me, it's enjoyable. I like it. I don't really like waking up early in the morning,
especially now that we're here in winter.
Yeah, once I get up, I'm okay, but it's getting out at first. But I'm so fortunate because I've got a great staff, I've got a great position, and I get, honestly, so many of the ladies are so grateful, and they always say, don't ever retire, and so.
You don't sometimes want to take a month-long vacation?
Oh, no.
No?
No. I'd be bored to death. Are you kidding me?
Doctor, when we were growing up, and even now, when I see my aunts around me, because I come from a larger extended family, they're all in their 70s, and they don't want to retire. and most of them are in academia, so they're school teachers. And they say, if I retire and sit at home while I'm able-bodied, they said I will die faster. That being at work, it's not like they need the money. The money is added bonus. It's the fact that they're mobile, they're out there, they're exercising their brains, they're using their limbs and their functions that otherwise would just keep them kind of lazy and comfortable at
You wither away.
Correct.
Yeah. And I'm afraid of that, to be honest with you. I don't want to wither away, you know?
But that's a remarkable trait, doctor. It's remarkable because a lot of people would say, I've done my part. And earlier when I heard you speak about you being a surgeon and how much pride you took, I felt that. Because the hours are long, you put in a lot of time at school, and it takes a lot out of a person to be in this profession. And here you are in your 70s, still, even though you've pivoted, still very much in love with it.
Yeah, I was very fortunate to stumble onto the survivorship issue because it's just been incredibly gratifying.
So when you look at, you said you haven't found somebody who could take on this position as well as you do. And when you look at the generation around you, what are your thoughts? Have we, to a certain extent, producing people who are just supposed to do things by the book and not go beyond because they're so inundated?
Well, you bring up a really good point that the young physicians coming out now they're very smart, but they're lacking in a couple of areas. Number one is social skills. They don't know how to talk to patients.
I've experienced that one too many times.
I'm sure you have, and many, many people do. They just say, they're not listening to me, or, they're not, I just can't connect with them. And that's one of the secrets of being a really, really good physician, is being able to talk to a patient and connect to them and listen to them. You got to listen more than you talk, and the other problem is that these young physicians are given 10, 15 minutes for the patient, and then you're gone. So you can't get into somebody, on a personal level in a 10-minute visit.
Correct.
And so there's communication skills, one thing. The other one, as you mentioned, is they do everything by the book. This you have this bug, this is your antibiotic, you have this, and they don't really treat the root cause of disease, which is lifestyle.
Yes, correct. And it's so funny you use the word root cause, because I have a close family member going through something, and I said, you've gone to a doctor how many times? So it's not just the number of visits, it's the money that you have spent, copious amounts, thousands of dollars at this point. But please tell me, if this is a specialist, I need you to ask them, just simple sentence, tell me the root cause. And to this day, they haven't given her the root cause. I said, then why do you continue going to the doctor if you can't identify the root cause? It's just these two simple words. But people, one, don't want to ask the question, or if it's asked, they don't know how to respond.
That's correct. The problem, too, is in today's world, the physicians have a pill for every ill. So if your blood pressure high, here's a pill. Sugar's high, here's a pill. Cholesterol high, here's a pill. That is not addressing the root cause.
Right.
And
so we have to become our own doctors through process of elimination sometimes.
Yeah, things are changing, and I'll tell you another thing that's a little bit spooky at the moment is this, where artificial intelligence is going to come into play, because they're even actually, I was reading the other day, developing robots that are going to do all the nursing care. And you're going to get to know a robot. But it's moving at a very fast pace, and it's very dangerous.
Yeah, and that's something we'll have to sort of uncover and wrap our heads around as it becomes introduced a bit more, and we're going to see.
It's coming so fast.
But you know what the interesting thing is going to be? The ethics of it. And it'll be also interesting, in my opinion, to see how the ethics is being rerouted into acceptance through the money makers. I'll just leave it there.
Yeah. No,
because I could get controversial, so I have to be a little bit smart.
You're doing great.
Thank you. Dr. Bodai, you have done so much in your lifespan. And also, by the way, when I was reading your book, I learned that you hold so many patents as well, which is such a remarkable achievement. What would you want your legacy to be remembered as, other than the guy who one stamp?
Oh, the stamp doctor.
Yes, the stamp doctor.
Oh, I don't know. I haven't thought about a legacy, to be honest with you. I just, I'm a very simple man. I don't need leave any legacy behind.
What keeps you so grounded, Doctor?
That's just the way I was. I'll tell you. I think I know. So I was born in Hungary, as you mentioned. Mm-hmm. We escaped, came to this country in 1958. We escaped in 1957, came here in 1958. And my parents, my dad was a physicist. He had a PhD in physics and one in math. He was a brilliant man.
What a smart man.
No social skills, but brilliant. He's a brilliant scientist.
There's an opportunity cost to everything, Doctor.
But, the fact of the matter is that I was so, my parents gave up everything to bring me to the United States. And my older brother, who's a dentist. And I watched my parents, when we came here, no, we didn't speak a word of English. My dad didn't, my mom didn't, I didn't, my brother didn't. And I watched them struggle to get established here was very, very painful to me. And as a young child, I decided that I would never let my kids struggle or watch me struggle the way that I watched my parents. And so I was very grateful to them for the opportunity they gave me, because if it wasn't for my dad and my mom's courage to leave everything behind. I mean, we literally came here with a shirt on our back. That was it. And to watch them sacrifice that for me, I said, I've got to take advantage of the opportunity that they gave me, and I'm going to work my tail off to get there. And that's what motivated me, actually. Now that I've thought about this before, but I haven't thought about it in a while until you asked me that question.
Okay. Dr. Bodai, you have lived such a rich, incredible life, and I am so grateful to be sitting across from you.
God, please.
To talk about this, because you are so funny and so charismatic, but so humble with the work that you have done. In the much earlier in the episode, when I mentioned awareness, you didn't just talk about something to bring in awareness. You actually demanded action. And sometimes when we set on the path to action and our purpose, the road is not straight. It's going to be wobbly. You're going to get big gusts of winds that can knock the wind out of you, and then you still have to figure out how to get back up. And you've done that time and time again throughout your life. It is an absolute honor for me to have your story come across on my channel. So thank you so much for
my
your
pleasure.
time.
It was an honor to be invited here. And
No,
seriously, it was a wonderful forum.
The pleasure is all mine. And one last thing as we wrap this up. For somebody who has heard the news that they've got cancer, and they're trying to figure out not just how to survive, but thrive, what would your advice be?
Well, I tell them I think probably the most important thing is to be positive, and that to understand that being diagnosed with breast cancer is not a death sentence, and that we can get you through this. We're going to have some bumps in the road, as with everything, but I think the most important thing to do is to let them know we're going to get you through this. We're going to hold your hand. We're going to walk with you. We'll be available. You need something, you know where to find me. I was telling you know where I live. It's my clinic. Come and get me. And seriously, just so important to have a positive attitude.
Okay. There you have it. Thank you so much for joining both Dr. Bodai and I. Hope that some of the gems that he shared is going to be helpful to all of you. I'll catch you guys in the next episode. Thank you.